Nurture and support. Nurture and support. This is a podcast theme song. And it's really short.
Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Nurture and Support. We're continuing our Westworld discussion with Season 2, Episode 5, Akane No Mai, maybe.
I'll go with that.
I am Mel at Karmic9.
And I am Akane No Mai at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
That didn't sound right. So, Westworld, Episode 5, everybody. This was a very heavy Maeve episode.
Hey.
It was really good. Still had some Dolores. We'll get to her.
Not on a good path. Not on a good path.
No. So we start this episode out with the mercenaries who, quote unquote, rescued Bernard from the beach. This is right after, we assume in the timeline, this is after they discovered the tiger and all of the bodies in the new sea that had been made. So they are dredging that sea, we find, and collecting all of the bodies and going through their cores or control units. And they find out something interesting, that like a third of their control unit was wiped. Like they had never had, how did they put it? Like they'd never had a personality?
Yeah, they called it, they were like virgin. It was like there was nothing ever there. So
Yes.
1/3 of their IP, according to Evil Corporate Dude, is lost.
Yes. Yeah, so there's our little mystery. And Bernard, during this entire scene, is just standing there with this very perturbed look on his face, looking at all of the naked Westworld host bodies that they're dragging around. So it was an interesting scene. So
Yeah, we got to see up close and personal how the control units are removed, what they kind of look like. So
yeah, it was a much cleaner way than the last control unit we saw removed, where they had to scalp the guy.
Yep.
This is a neat little helmet that they put on them, and it just sucks that control unit out of there.
yeah, it's like a Ron Popeil as seen on TV kind of deal. Ron
comes
Popeil
out-
reference for all of our young listeners out there.
Yeah, it comes out all nice and clean. It's very, very nice and hygienic. So yeah, that was interesting. So hopefully, I'm sure we'll find out more about that later.
Yeah, and then we move to the next scene, and this is what Westworld does so well, is this kind of folding back upon itself. And in this way, it's a huge folding back upon itself. Maeve and team have been captured. She thought, as she has, previous episodes, we've seen her develop tremendous control over hosts. She assumed she could continue to do that as well. She's unsuccessful. She gets gagged. She can't control them. I love Felix. Do you remember the name? So who's Felix's irritating pudgy buddy?
Oh, I never remember his name.
I have warmed to this duo quite a bit.
I love them.
They're very entertaining, and there's this whole process where, so they're captured, they're walking, there's lots of talking going on, and these are Japanese folks, and Pudgy Boy turns to Felix and goes, "Can you tell me what they're saying?" And Felix, with great disdain, goes, "I'm from Hong Kong," And,
Yes.
and so it was pretty awesome there. Eventually, and again, and I have to continue to lead on you, Mel, are Lee. I got it. Yes. Lee.
Weasel Boy, I was getting ready to
Weasel Boy. Lee, he's starting to become slightly more useful in a lot of ways, and as I'll continue through this episode, but he starts to figure out, hey, you're going to probably need to talk to them in Japanese to make this work. Kind of fill Maeve in on the dynamic. He understands how the park works and when hosts should flip to, if you're speaking English, speak English versus Japanese. So it's all kind of very cool stuff. From there, musically, and this happens a couple of incredibly cool times in this episode, we kind of come into the town. It's a Japanese town, but it is also Sweetwater. And you start to piece together that Lee didn't work particularly hard at developing additional new storylines, because this is basically taking many of the elements of that and pouring it into that. You get the Paint It Black. We go way back in Westworld to some of the first scenes in Sweetwater where there's the big safe heist. You get Paint It Black played in a Westworldy kind of way. Now you get kind of the Japanese version of Paint It Black, which is
Totally missed that.
incredibly cool from there. But it's the same storyline, including, the snake and the dragon. So we have, again, help me, Mel.
I don't
Blondie girl.
I don't know the dragon's name, but it's Armistice. So yeah, we found that they're basically, Maeve's group has been captured by their doppelbots.
Yes.
From Shogun World. So it was really very cool. But yeah, we found out there was, and I can't remember, I think it may have been Felix's annoying friend who said in this scene, well, great, we've been captured by samurai cop killers. Yes. I think it was him that said that.
Great banding.
Samurai cop killers.
Yeah, and I had that note, samurai cop killer, in there, and I was like, I can't remember the context of that. And this was, again, where I warmed to the kind of Abbott and Costello, Felix, and Pudgy Boy.
Yeah.
So that's that scene.
So our next scene is back to Dolores, and there is actually a really cool opening to this scene of the, I don't know the correct term for that type of piano in the saloon that plays with the
player piano?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And
you help me with characters, I'll help you with physical devices.
Okay. And the spool on it is stained with blood, and it's this very slow music as the scene opens and it scrolls through. It was really a very nice opening. A good change between Maeve's storyline and into Dolores's. So Dolores and Entourage have arrived back in Sweetwater. And she's in Sweetwater because they're going to steal the train because she's going after Daddy. And she's being suspiciously nice to Teddy. Now, we all have, everyone recalls, we have reason to be worried for Teddy because Dolores saw Teddy let the Major go. And so we've been wondering what was going to happen because of that. But Dolores seems to have let all of that go. She's never brought it up to him. She's being very friendly with Teddy. And they're walking around town, looking at the train, chit-chatting. And they go into, I guess, was it the saloon, or I guess it's the brothel or whatever.
The brothel, yeah.
Yeah. And there's the only one left standing. There's a guy in there, I think, playing cards. And the new Clementine, who's still standing, going through her spiel. But zombie Clementine is there as well, staring at her with this poor, sad look on her face of total confusion. So I hope someday we find out what's actually happened to zombie Clementine, because she's definitely damaged.
Yep. Yeah, and I've warmed to Clementine quite a bit, and I'm pulling for her, but she is definitely zombie Clementine now. Sadly, we get a return of not much of a rind on you, which I could have lived without, but it's back.
Yes. So I think that was the end of that scene. She sends zombie Clementine away, and they continue wandering through town.
So then we kind of sweep back to Shogun World, and we got kind of a Westworld geisha, Sakura. And the Shogun representative shows up, and he wants her, to basically, he wants her in terms of her property. Kind of explains some of the story. There's some not pleasant lines, but pretty awesome lines in this movie, or in this episode. One of them being, when the Shogun representative says, "Hey, when I ask for meat, I don't ask for the story of the cow," which is mildly horrific, but still, in terms of a character development and stuff going on, pretty cool from there. And then we get ninjas, which is awesome. It's always good to have ninjas from there.
I believe Lee says, "Shit, ninjas."
Yes. Good episode for Lee, by the way. Continuing to warm to Lee quite a bit
Yes.
as well. There's a lot of characters that I'm starting to really like a lot more than I didn't think I would. But we got ninjas in there. There's a ninja fight. And then eventually we get to this very cool moment where Maeve in the past has had to verbally kind of order people to do things. And she gets into, it's a tremendous battle scene, fight scene, a lot of stuff going on. But there's a guy kind of choking her out. And then she's eventually able to kind of mentally, through the kind of the nearby network kind of deal, go, hey, you know what would be really good? Stick your head on that big spike that's sitting over there. And the guy that was attacking her self-destructs from there. So she can now kind of execute through her mind and affect other people. And as this all kind of settles out, the I'm gonna try Mashushi. I don't know. He's the kind of
He's Hector. He's the
Hector Shogun
of
Hector. Shogun Hector
Shogun Hector.
comes out, and it was pretty cool. I watched some of the kind of post episode where they talk about kind of the combination of things, and they said what we tried to do is take somewhat traditional Japanese attire and then introduce, because Hector's always had kind of this leather deal going on with stripes. And so they introduced elements of that. So Shogun Hector has, if you look at his attire, there are kind of callbacks to the Hector look as well. But he goes out and runs into what used to be, he used to be the lead of the Shogun's army. He is no longer, and his former lieutenant is now in charge, who looks kind of like a jerk. And they kind of face off. And that kind of wraps up this thing. I like, and again, sorry to butcher this, folks, Musashi. I think he's, of all the, again, this is another one with lots of really super good characters. He's, Shogun Hector, love Shogun Hector. So very, very cool.
Yes. And he was being very snarky in a polite Japanese way.
Yes. Yeah, it was very
to his former lieutenant, who's now the captain. But what I particularly liked at the very beginning of that scene was how much Hector does not like Shogun Hector.
Yeah, it's clear that they are not, and it's weird because Armistice likes Shogun Armistice quite a bit. They seem to have kind of bonded because she helped her out.
Right.
In the previous episode. Maeve likes Shogun Maeve, Akane, quite a bit, but the Hectors are not getting along at all.
The Hectors are, I guess they're a little too alpha. They're not getting along very well. Which, strikes back to when they first entered the town, speaking of Armistice and Dragon, of Felix, of the Abbott and Costello duo being used as human shields by Shogun Armistice. That was a good scene.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's fun, super fun.
That was fun. This was a really good episode.
It was, absolutely.
Oh, man, I keep getting stuck with the Dolores scenes, man.
Sorry.
Our next scene is Dolores and Teddy. Dolores asked Teddy to take a ride, and I know I'm sitting there going, oh no, this is when she's going to kill him. She's going to take him out to the prairie and shoot him. They do go out to the prairie. They're looking at where Dolores and Daddy used to have their herd, and she gives a nice little speech about a story about how they almost lost the herd one year to Blue Tongue and how they saved the herd. And she asked Teddy what he would have done. And Teddy failed the Blue Tongue test, y'all. Teddy would have been too nice and the herd would have died. Instead, you got to burn them. You have to burn the weak and the infected to save the strong. That's what her daddy did to the herd, to save him from Blue Tongue. But Teddy was too nice. Teddy's a good man.
Yep.
Teddy would have put them all in the barn to protect the weak from the Blue Tongue. And that was the wrong answer.
Which is clear.
Yes.
Because Teddy was all about shelter, and Dolores and Daddy were all about burn.
Burn.
And in a very sincere way, Teddy's talking to Dolores about, so we're free. Why don't we just walk away from all this? Why don't we go away? There's got to be a place for us there.
Yes.
And at the tail end of this scene, Dolores says, well, I'll think about it. And we totally know she's not going to think about it at all.
But they did a good job. Even I, who have not been a fan of Dolores / Wyatt's choices, you know, you're starting to go, well, maybe she's coming around. Maybe she really cares about Teddy. Maybe it's real.
So
We'll
there is definitely something there, conflicting priorities between I'm going to kick some ass here and her appreciate, because Teddy's a good man, and
Yeah.
she sees that, and that's not a bad thing. But yeah, it is. It becomes kind of clear that Teddy and Dolores are on very different paths at
Yes.
this point.
Yes. Dolores doesn't want to walk away. I mean, we all know that.
Yeah, more to come on that.
Yes. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm looking through my notes, and again, it looks like we're going to continue where I get Maeve and you get Dolores.
God,
So
lucky
sorry.
me.
You want to flip?
No,
I'm open.
Continue.
Okay, I want to be a team player.
Okay.
So Maeve talks about finding a new voice, because we've kind of learned now in the previous scene that she doesn't even have to verbally do some things. She can kind of create some mojo without having to say things. They're starting to walk through an environment where there's a bunch of individuals hung up on trees with kind of cages on their head, and it looks like these are Delos soldiers, the cavalry, which
isn't coming now.
Fat Felix talks about, and he was like, so the cavalry's all dead. And these were Delos guys, but Lee gets and by the way, in my notes, because I'm horrible on names, I have underscore, biggest long line, underscore gets walkie. So, Lee gets walkie. So he comes up to one of these folks. They've hung them up on trees, put these boxes over their head, but he sees one of them has a walkie-talkie. He grabs that, kind of surreptitiously. They kind of come into the Shogun camp, and they see that he's actually leaking what's the cortical fluid. They see that kind of coming out of his ear. They go, so he's not bad, he's broken. So the Shogun is broken, much like Bernard has been having some issues from there. And so the Shogun's broken. Maeve does some talking. So I loved this episode. I thought it was a fantastic episode, but a little bit of this premise of, hey, this is the Chinese emissary kind of coming in to talk to you. I totally didn't buy how anyone could possibly buy that with a veil, but they kind of come in there. Maeve's the spokesperson for the Chinese emissary to the Shogun, and she's saying some things. He's hearing her. And she and Lee are kind of looking side to side of what's going on. They're like, wow, the lieutenants aren't buying this at all. We figure out why, because the Shogun has burned or butchered or whatever. Basically, all their ears are clipped off. So most of the core Shogun army no longer can hear, because that was a preventative measure he took. And there was a bit of a dialogue, and he basically said, okay, I'll make you a deal, because a lot of his premise was he wanted Shakura to join. He wanted her, and Akane didn't want that. He said, fine, if you dance for me, then she's yours. And that's how the scene ends.
Yeah, and Sakura was looking a lot like the girl from The Ring.
She was not at her best day
in this scene. She was not happy. I think part of the Chinese thing, the emissary, I think Akane explains that in a later episode, in a later scene when she's talking to Sakura. But there was the Chinese emissary was actually in their little brothel when the fight began, and he got killed. So,
right. Yeah, but yes, absolutely. But I'm still not buying that the Shogun's he's gonna know who's walking in here.
Yeah, no, he figured it out because he's crazy like a fox. So.
Leaking cortical fluid.
Yeah, he's a very unpleasant person. I don't like him. But back to Dolores and the train. Angela, who we haven't talked to recently, shows up with one of the Delos soldiers, and my notes just say Angela is badass because
Absolutely.
I don't know where she got all of these skills, but she definitely brings it. So they have tracked. She was in charge of tracking where they took Dolores' father, Abernathy. And so she knows where they've gone. So basically, they're ready to get the train up to speed because they've got to do some repairs on it.
And
Because
strip it down.
Yeah, so it can
For
go really
speed.
fast.
For speed, yep.
Yes, and they're going to Mesa because that's where they're taking Abernathy. And thankfully, this was a short scene, at least for my explanation of it. Dolores takes Teddy to a hotel, and they proceed to have some classic Westworld sexy times. So, we're supposed to hope that maybe this means Dolores isn't going to do something horrible to Teddy, but you never know about Dolores. So
you don't.
Yes.
Very well filmed.
It was not as explicit as what we have seen in previous episodes, so that was good.
Yeah, a fair amount of buttock action, which seems to be a hallmark. So Teddy, fine buttocks, well done, my friend.
Yes.
But my notes are basically Teddy and Dolores. So that was
Yes, in a hotel. So
wow, this continues to suck for you because again,
I know.
Sorry. So, we got to swing back to Maeve because Mel doesn't like to talk about Maeve, but I like to talk about Maeve. Super sad moment. Sakura, who's now out of the ring mode. She's
Yes. She's all geisha'd up.
She's all geisha'd up, but she's clearly shaken, and there's a lot of trouble. And what it turns out is that Shogun decided to make her more beautiful. And to make her more beautiful, he decided to tattoo a large cherry blossom tree on her back, which I'm going to imagine didn't feel particularly good.
Yeah, it looked burned in to me.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah.
Feel for her in a lot of ways. So Akane and Shakura start talking, and she's kind of telling her a story, which, as she tells her story, is very much like the Maeve story from Sweetwater in the brothel, to the extent that Maeve actually finishes parts of the story. As they get to the tail end, it's all talking about going to a new world. Maeve talks to Akane and says, "Look, I can take you to the new world." And there's a pregnant pause. And now we'll get back to Mel talking about Dolores.
Yes.
Unless there's anything you want to add about this scene.
No. Maeve really, I love Maeve. Everybody knows that I love Maeve.
Great.
Maeve really, really feels, because this is her storyline, just in Shogun World, she really feels for Akane and Sakura, and you have to feel for them because you have the sense nothing good is going to happen. So, speaking of nothing good happening, we go back to Dolores.
Wow, this is remarkably amazing how you've been completely hosed on this episode, and I'm sorry.
Dolores and Teddy should be basking in the afterglow, but we have a feeling that Dolores doesn't have any afterglow.
She's afterglow free.
I don't think Dolores feels much afterglow. Teddy does, though. So after, Teddy wakes up kind of like confused to find that Dolores isn't there. Dolores is already dressed, gunned up, and comes back into the room and tells Teddy they need to talk. She needs to show him something. So she takes him to kind of look like a little outbuilding, and thankfully I didn't really get a really good look of what was on the table, but apparently it was stinking and rotting and it was pretty nasty. And that horrible little blue tongue conversation that they had earlier comes back up. And unfortunately, this is the time that we all knew was coming when Dolores is going to screw Teddy over. And Teddy takes a really long time to get there, to understand something bad is going to happen to him. Dolores gives a very touching little speech, though I really didn't feel like she really looked like she was very sorry about it. She tells him she's sorry, but again, she's on her kick of only the strong are going to survive this, and that Teddy's not strong enough. So you're not sure if she's going to light him on fire in this outbuilding, because burning is something that, she likes to do. But then some of her little masked hoodlums come in, and they have, I don't know his name, they have the technician they've been hauling around with them for a couple of episodes. And the hooded guys grab Teddy. Teddy finally is starting to get a clue that something bad is getting ready to happen to him, and he starts struggling in that sad Teddy way that he has. And you're just like, Teddy, you poor thing, you should have run away. And the tech is like, are you sure you want to do this? Because change is this drastic without a reboot. And he kind of leaves it open. So you're like, oh, great. Basically, they're reprogramming Teddy. And that's where the scene ends. Teddy kind of freezes and gets this horrified look on his face as the little dials on the iPad scroll up. And you're like, okay. So next episode, maybe we'll find out what's happened to Teddy.
Yeah, and programmer guy, because I don't know his name either, said, when we're doing this big a change, we really should be doing a reboot.
Mm-hmm.
But Dolores like, screw it. Just do it. And
yeah.
We knew this was coming. We had a sense of it. It was pretty clear on that. All right. So I want to be. So Mel and I have been podcasting for a very, very long time, since 2013. So I want to be a kind and friendly podcast partner. Would you like to take the last scene, or do you want me to take the last scene?
Oh no, go ahead.
All right. I can't believe how this worked out. That you got totally screwed on Dolores episodes, but you can work it in, right?
Yeah.
So we get to the deal. Shogun has said, "You dance, and you can have her." So Shakura, you want to have her? You dance, and she's all yours. And so they get kind of lined up. And I was a little, this was a little bit of a gap for me in that he had said, you dance and you get her. But Shakura and Akane are both dancing or preparing to dance.
Yeah, it was
starts off.
Yeah, it was my understanding that they were going to dance together is what he wanted. But I don't know. That was always, they both queue up. They're going to dance.
They are both going to dance. My impression was he had said, it's just you, Akane, but they're both there. And they're about to start. He goes, wait a sec. And he walks up and he kills Shakura.
Yep.
And he said, I told you could have her. She's all yours.
Because he's a jerk.
He cortical fluid. Cortical fluid.
I think he was a jerk before the cortical fluid leak.
Yeah, I think a combination of previously jerk, combination of cortical fluid, super jerk from there. So he kills her. Akane starts to do her dance. Super cool. Very amazing scene in terms of her doing that. It gets even more amazing because as she eventually works her way towards the Shogun, who, by the way, so being a big Alice Cooper fan, I know that any kind of things you have stuck in your head as kind of crossbars are dangerous. You should be very, very careful. But Shogun, cortical fluid or whatever, not completely clued into it, she pulls out from her hair, kind of coupled up into the kind of geisha dancer kind of thing, a knife, and oh wow. So a fairly incredible scene where she cuts off 3/4 of his head.
Yes.
With a knife she pulls out of her headdress. Incredibly kind of Greg Nicotero Walking Dead kind of scene in terms of what goes on. I mean, this is amazing on a lot of fronts because she cuts his head off at about 3/4, so it's like right at the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And when the head flips back, you kind of see the esophagus and the tongue, and it's like crazy. She kind of slides to the side. Shogun steps up momentarily and drops because, when you've lost 3/4 of your head, you're not going to be cruising around a whole lot.
I kind of started to worry, though, for a second that he was going to keep going, even with his head gone. But he
Yeah,
didn't.
it was. I mean, you couldn't tell because things are so messed up. But incredible scene. She takes off the Shogun. All of a sudden, all everything breaks loose. But basically, Maeve kind of turns it to, "Hey guys, why don't you kill each other?"
Yep.
And they go, "Sure, Maeve," and they start doing that.
She's using her magical Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Yep.
Near field magic.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of kind of everybody clearing each other out. Somebody does eventually hit a gong, which apparently calls more people into the environment. And then Maeve's indicates at the end, says, "Hey, I found a new voice." She kind of pulls out the sword and holds it in her hand and goes, "We're going to use it."
Yeah.
And that's where the episode ends.
Yep. You've got that rest of the army running towards the fort or whatever you want to call it, and she does that. It's really cool. One of the saddest things, though, is that Akane, when she did that, she went and knelt, basically accepting her fate, an assumption that they're going to kill her, that she's willing. She basically just died because they killed her child, Sakura, and the juxtaposition of that with Maeve and Maeve's quest to find her daughter, it was a really moving scene. And that dance that she did was very, very cool, very nice, and Shogun definitely deserved that. So that was a really, really great scene to end this episode on. So we'll see.
Yeah, so we continue to get Maeve's an incredible badass, does a lot of good things, took out the super bad guy, lots of incredible scenes from there.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about
episode.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Hector and Armistice and Musashi. They got left behind distracting the rest of the army while they escaped. So they were not in the fort. So I guess we'll hopefully find out what happens to them next episode.
Indeed we will. So here we go. What was this? 5?
This was episode 159, episode 5.
Episode 5. More to come. So we came out of Riddle of the Sphinx last episode, super great. This one, Heavy Maeve, another incredibly good episode.
Yes.
So good stuff.
Yep, I really liked this episode. Any episode with a lot of Maeve and Hector is good, but this one was a pretty emotional episode. So we learned some interesting stuff. Not, a whole lot of crazy mind-altering stuff, but we got a lot of emotion in this episode. I think it was really good. So
yep, I'm with you.
A lot of funny, a lot of Lee and Felix and Costello. Maybe we'll just call him Costello.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and then well done, because it was that combination of incredible there's good character development, but some humor into it as well. Yeah. So it's good stuff.
Yeah. And at this point, I will be really upset if something happens to Lee, Last season, I wanted Lee to die.
Yeah.
and Lee is just, I like Lee. Lee is broken, but he's an interesting guy, so I like him. But of course, nothing better ever happened to my Felix. So.
Yeah, redemption arc for Lee, I would say. We're headed that way. It's good. Felix, incredibly awesome as well. Costello, not so much, but fun.
He's fun.
I like him. Yeah. I'm pulling for him. Hope he does okay.
Hope he makes it. So eventually we'll find out as the season goes on. Hopefully we'll start drawing all these timelines closer together to get a better idea of who's going to survive what, because I don't have a really clear idea of time frames that we're dealing with between these stories anymore. So
no, much like season 1, where we had these kind of parallels going on, we're starting to piece together. Season 2, same thing, although a little tighter. Maybe it's about a 12-day
Yeah.
kind of thing going on, but we're still trying to piece it together from there. But
Yeah.
but good stuff. This was a great episode, so I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So we'll be back next time with episode 6 of season 2 of Westworld. We hope y'all will join us.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com, or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter.
Nurturing and supporting.